The 12-year-old boy's hands were shaking as he dialed the number he'd spent 3 days trying to find. When Muhammad Ali's voice came through the phone, Tommy Williams took a deep breath and asked the question that had been eating at him for 2 weeks. "Mr. Ali, my daddy got shot and killed. I know who did it. Will you teach me how to hurt them back?" What Ali said next, and what he did later that same night, would change both their lives forever. March 18, 1978, Detroit, Michigan. Tommy Williams sat in the Detroit Public Library, surrounded by newspapers and phone books, his small fingers tracing through pages with the determination of someone much older than his 12 years. For the past 3 days, every day after school, he'd been coming here with one mission: find Muhammad Ali's phone number. 2 weeks earlier, Tommy's world had shattered. His father, Robert Williams, a 34-year-old auto worker at Ford's River Rouge plant, had been shot and killed outside Murphy's Bar on 8 Mile Road. Robert wasn't a drinker or a fighter. He'd stopped for a Coke on his way home from his second shift when 3 men tried to rob him. When Robert resisted, they shot him twice in the chest and left him bleeding on the sidewalk. The police had arrested one suspect, Marcus Johnson, but the other 2 had disappeared. Johnson's family had money for lawyers. Robert Williams had been buried in a pine coffin that his widow Sarah could barely afford. Tommy had watched his mother cry herself to sleep every night since the funeral, and something dark and angry was growing inside his chest. Tommy had always been small for his age, quiet, more interested in books than sports. But after his father's death, he'd become obsessed with one idea: revenge. Not justice through the courts, which his mother kept saying would happen eventually, but real revenge, making the men who killed his father suffer the way his family was suffering. That's when Tommy remembered something his father had told him about Muhammad Ali. "That man's the greatest fighter who ever lived, son. Not just because he can hit hard, but because he's smart. He knows how to hurt people who hurt him." Tommy had decided that if anyone could teach him how to get revenge, it would be Muhammad Ali. After 3 days of calling sports reporters and boxing gyms, Mrs. Henderson, a sympathetic librarian, helped him find Ali's personal number in Chicago. Now sitting with the number written on a crumpled piece of paper, Tommy felt his heart racing. He dropped 2 quarters into the payphone and dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Hello, this is Muhammad." Tommy's mouth went dry. It was really him. Muhammad Ali was actually on the phone. "Mr. Ali," Tommy's voice cracked slightly. "My name is Tommy Williams. I'm 12 years old, and I live in Detroit. My daddy got killed 2 weeks ago, and I need your help." There was a pause on the other end. When Ali spoke again, his voice was gentler, more careful. "I'm sorry to hear about your father, son. That's a terrible thing for a boy to go through. What kind of help do you need?" Tommy took a deep breath. "I know who killed him. One of them got arrested, but 2 others got away. My mama says the police will catch them, but I don't think they care enough to try. I want to hurt them myself. I want to make them pay for what they did to my daddy. Will you teach me how to fight? Will you show me how to hurt them back?" The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Tommy could hear Ali breathing on the other end, and for a moment he was terrified that the champion would hang up on him. Finally, Ali spoke, and his voice carried a weight that Tommy didn't understand. "Tommy, how long has it been since your daddy died?" 2 weeks and 3 days, Tommy said immediately. "And you've been thinking about hurting those men every day since?" "Yes, sir. Every day. Every night. I think about finding them and making them sorry they ever touched my daddy." Ali was quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was even softer. "Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think real hard before you answer. When you think about hurting those men, does it make the pain in your chest go away?" Tommy was surprised by the question. He thought about it for a moment. "No, sir. It makes it worse. But I figure if I could actually hurt them, then maybe it would feel better." "It won't," Ali said simply. "It'll make it worse. Much worse. And I'll tell you how I know that." Tommy pressed the phone closer to his ear, not wanting to miss a single word. "When I was your age," Ali continued, "there was a racist police officer in my neighborhood who treated my family badly. I used to think about fighting him, about showing him what it felt like to be hurt. You know what happened when I got strong enough. Nothing. By then I realized hurting him wouldn't fix anything. It would just make me like him." Tommy felt tears. "You're right," Ali said, his voice firm. "They do deserve to be punished, but not by you, son. Because if you hurt them, you won't be Tommy Williams anymore. You'll be someone else, someone your daddy wouldn't recognize." There was another pause, and Tommy could hear Ali moving around, as if he was pacing. "Tommy, where are you calling from?" "The library. Downtown." "What's your address? Where do you live?" Tommy hesitated. His mother had always told him never to give his address to strangers, but this was Muhammad Ali, and Ali was trying to help him. 1247 Cass Avenue, Apartment 3B. You stay right there at that library, Ali said, and something in his voice had changed. Don't go home yet. I'm coming to Detroit. I'll be there in about 3 hours. We need to talk face to face. Tommy couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're coming here to see me? Yes, I am. And Tommy, I want you to promise me something while I'm driving there. Promise me you won't do anything about those men until after we talk. Can you promise me that? Yes, sir, Tommy said. I promise. Good. I'll see you soon, son. The line went dead, and Tommy stood there holding the phone, barely able to process what had just happened. Muhammad Ali was driving to Detroit to see him. The greatest fighter in the world was coming because a 12-year-old boy had asked for help. 3.5 hours later, Tommy was still at the library when Mrs. Henderson approached him with a confused expression. Tommy, there's a man here to see you. He says his name is Muhammad Ali. Tommy looked toward the library entrance and saw him. Muhammad Ali, 36 years old, still powerfully built, but moving with a slightly different rhythm than Tommy remembered from old fight footage. Ali was looking around the library, and when his eyes found Tommy, he smiled that famous Ali smile. You must be Tommy Williams, Ali said, walking over with his hand extended. I'm Muhammad Ali, thank you for calling me. Tommy shook Ali's hand, still not quite believing this was real. Up close, Ali was even more impressive than he'd imagined. But there was something in his eyes that Tommy recognized. A sadness that looked familiar. Can we go somewhere to talk? Ali asked. Maybe get something to eat? I haven't had dinner yet. They walked to a small diner 3 blocks from the library, Ali asking Tommy questions about school, about his neighborhood, about anything except his father's death. When they sat down in a corner booth, Ali finally addressed what had brought them together. Tell me about your daddy, Ali said, not about how he died but about who he was. For the next hour, Tommy talked about Robert Williams, how he'd worked 2 jobs, taught Tommy to ride a bike, helped with homework despite his own limited education, and saved for 2 years to buy Tommy encyclopedias. Ali listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or asking a gentle question. When Tommy finished, Ali was quiet for a long moment. Your daddy sounds like he was a good man, Ali said finally. A man who wanted to build things, not tear them down. A man who believed in making the world better, not worse. Tommy nodded, tears starting again. Now let me ask you something, Ali continued. If your daddy could see you right now, if he could hear what you're planning to do to those men who hurt him, what do you think he'd say? Tommy thought about it for a long time. He'd say I was wrong. He'd say that's not who he raised me to be. And he'd be right, Ali said gently. But Tommy, that doesn't mean you do nothing. It doesn't mean you just forget about what happened or pretend it doesn't matter. Then what do I do? Tommy asked, his voice breaking. How do I live with this? How do I wake up every morning knowing they're still out there, probably laughing about killing my daddy? Ali leaned forward, his eyes intense. You live by making your daddy's life matter more than his death. You grow up to be the man he wanted you to be. You get that education he was working so hard to give you. You build the kind of life that would make him proud. But what about them? What about justice? Justice will come, Ali said. Maybe from the police, maybe from the courts, maybe from life itself, but it won't come from a 12-year-old boy trying to hurt people. That's not justice, Tommy. That's just more violence. They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Ali spoke again. I want to tell you something I've never told anyone, he said. When I refused to go to Vietnam, people said I was a coward. They said I was afraid to fight. But you know what I was really afraid of? Tommy shook his head. I was afraid of becoming someone I couldn't live with. I wasn't afraid of dying, Tommy. I was afraid of living with blood on my hands. Ali reached across the table and put his hand on Tommy's shoulder. That's what would happen to you if you hurt those men. You might survive it, but you wouldn't be able to live with it. And your daddy didn't work 2 jobs and save money for encyclopedias so his son could grow up to be someone who hurts people. Tommy felt something breaking inside his chest, but it wasn't the angry breaking he'd felt for 2 weeks. It was something different, a release. I miss him so much, Tommy whispered. I know you do, Ali said. And you always will, but missing him doesn't have to make you angry. It can make you grateful. Grateful that you had 12 years with a man who loved you enough to work 2 jobs and help with homework and teach you right from wrong. They talked until the diner closed at 10 p.m. Ali paid for their meal and walked Tommy home to the apartment on Cass Avenue. When they reached the building, Ali stopped. Tommy, I want you to promise me something else. What? Promise me that every time you think about hurting those men, you'll think about something your daddy taught you instead. Every time that anger comes up, you'll remember a lesson he gave you, a moment you shared, something good you learned from him. I promise, Tommy said. And promise me you'll write me a letter in 1 year and tell me how you're doing. I want to know that you're still the boy your daddy raised, not someone that anger turned you into. I will, Mr. Ali. Ali smiled and embraced Tommy. Your daddy would be proud of you, son. You had the courage to ask for help when you were hurting. That's harder than any fight. As Ali walked away into the Detroit night, Tommy felt something he hadn't felt since his father's death. Peace. Not happiness. Not the end of grief, but a quiet certainty that he would be okay. The next morning, Tommy's mother Sarah noticed a change in her son. The angry tension that had been radiating from him for 2 weeks was gone. When she asked what had happened, Tommy told her about his phone call to Muhammad Ali and their conversation at the diner. Sarah was shocked that Ali had driven to Detroit to help her son, but she was more shocked by the change in Tommy. The boy who had been consumed with thoughts of revenge was now talking about getting better grades, about making his father proud, about growing up to be someone his father would respect. 1 year later, Tommy kept his promise. He wrote a letter to Muhammad Ali, telling him that he was doing well in school, that his grades had improved dramatically, that he was thinking about becoming a teacher like his father had wanted to be. He wrote that he still missed his father every day, but that the anger was gone. He'd learned to remember his father's love, instead of focusing on his father's death. Ali wrote back, a handwritten letter that Tommy treasured for the rest of his life. The letter was brief but powerful. Tommy, your daddy is proud of you. So am I. Keep growing into the man he knew you could become. You're already a champion. Muhammad Ali. Tommy Williams became a teacher, graduating from Wayne State in 1984. He taught elementary school for 30 years, sharing Ali's story annually with students. Marcus Johnson was convicted. The other suspects never caught. Tommy felt no satisfaction. Ali had taught him justice and revenge are different things. In 2016, Tommy attended Ali's funeral in Louisville, later visiting his father's grave to share how Ali had helped his son choose hope over hatred. Today, Tommy Williams is retired but still volunteers as a counselor for young people who have lost parents to violence. He tells them what Muhammad Ali told him 40 years ago, that their pain is real, their anger is valid, but their future doesn't have to be defined by the worst thing that ever happened to them. Your daddy didn't die so you could become someone who hurts people, he tells them, echoing the words that changed his life. He lived so you could become someone who helps people. That's how you honor him. That's how you win. The lesson Muhammad Ali taught Tommy Williams in a Detroit diner became a lesson that Tommy shared with hundreds of young people over the decades. Not through speeches or books, but through quiet conversations, late-night phone calls, and the simple act of listening to pain without trying to fix it, just like Ali had done for him. Sometimes the greatest victories happen not in boxing rings, but in small diners when a champion saves a child from his own anger. Muhammad Ali saved Tommy Williams that night in 1978, and Tommy reminded Ali that greatness is sometimes as simple as helping one boy choose hope over hate. The phone call that began with a child asking for lessons in revenge ended with a man learning lessons in forgiveness. And that, perhaps, is the greatest lesson of all.